Let's talk about the best book that I've read in 2025. I made a top 10-ish. I do have a few special mentions at the end of the books that you need to pick up in 2026. The first book that needs to be mentioned is We Used to Live Here. I don't even have my copy right now because I let someone borrow it, which I don't do that super often because I'm scared of what will happen to it, but I needed other people to read this book so I could talk about it. This is a horror book, and horror can be so hit and miss in general. I think the rating has been lowering every day ever since I read it, and I think it's about like 3.6 now on Goodreads, but you cannot look at the ratings of horror books. It doesn't mean anything. The premise was right up my alley. You have this couple, these two women that buy a house in a kind of remote location, and they're planning on flipping it. And one day, only one of them is at home when this family shows up, and the man says that they used to live here. He used to live here. So they come in because she's a people pleaser and let them, which mistake number one. And things start happening and getting weirder and weirder very quickly. I'm not going to say more because I don't want to spoil anything. I feel like it's the kind of book that you don't want to know too much, but I can reveal a little bit more like other genres that are linked to it in the comment section if you want to know. But let's just say that a creepy basement or an attic, I get uncomfortable very easily just reading about it. Actually, my friend could not finish the book because she got too scared, so if you're sensitive, just be aware. But I loved it, and I know a lot of people have created like threads on Reddit to kind of have theories about it. I just liked it for what it was. I could not put it down. I loved it, and he's coming out with a new book next year, and I have the arc. It's the first book I will be reading in 2026, so hopefully another 5-star. There Are Rivers in the Sky by Alif Shafak. I adore this book. I love her writing. She writes more literary fiction verging on like magical realism, which is usually not my thing, but I have been really enjoying her books, and I think this is her best one so far that I've read. I don't necessarily think it's the best one to start with because it takes you maybe like half the book to really get invested, so just be aware you can still start with that one. 5-star easily. You're following 3 main stories. One of them is in the 1800s, this little boy that is born with absolutely nothing, and he wants to do something with himself. He gets really invested in education and other things, and eventually that will lead him to an interesting life. The second story is set in 2014. This little girl who is slowly going deaf, and she is spending her life with her grandmother who is telling her these kind of magical stories. And then the third point of view is from 2018. This woman who is feeling very lost. She is getting divorced. She's now moving into a house on a boat. She's an orphan, and she just feels very lost at that point in her life. All these stories are linked to water, which is kind of the magical realism portion in the book, and I loved it. You get to a point where you realize that some of these events are actually related to real life, and I may have shed a tear or two. Maybe. But yes, she gets me so emotionally invested in her stories. I absolutely adore this. It's a slow-paced book, but you will get so invested, and 5-star. Loved it. Obviously it's in this video, but loved it. I pretty much never read books because I have so many that I want to read, but I made an exception with this series. I reread The Will of the Many and then read the second one, The Strength of the Few, and I feel like, does it count to give your #1 spot to a book you had already read? I don't know. I mean, it's my channel. I can do what I want, but I feel like this was even better the second time around. I feel like sometimes you wonder, like looking back, did I give it 5-star and loved it so much just because it was the first time in the hype? No, this is absolutely fantastic. I loved it even more the second time around. In the first book, you follow a main character who is part of this royal family who was conquered by the hierarchy. And the hierarchy is basically like Roman inspired, but also a pyramid scheme. The magic system is based on it. It makes sense when you read it. And he's in hiding, trying to fight, trying to survive. And he is taken under the wing of this man who wants him to go to this magical school to solve the murder mystery of his brother. Nothing will come easy, but I could not put this book down the first time nor the second time. And the second book was also amazing. I really enjoyed it. I do have to say, to keep this spoiler free, I'm just going to say that the point of view kind of changes a bit in book 2 and might take you a second to completely follow, but I did think it was worth it. I personally am a big fan of magical school, so I feel like this setting was even better, but book 2 was also awesome. I can't wait to actually see what people are rating it. I have been avoiding any reviews since I read it, and I adored it. So easily 2 5-star, 2 books that are worth the hype. I feel like sometimes you start looking at a book that is too hype and like, is it going to be worth it? It is. And I liked book 1 so much when I read it in 2024 that I spent the next year reading his other series. The first book in that series is The Shadow of What Was Lost, but I read that in 2024. I just wanted to give you the name. But in 2025, I read the second one, which is An Echo of Things to Come, and then The Light of All That Falls. And this is the book I'm choosing for this video for the top 10, but I did really enjoy book 2 also. This series is kind of complicated. The world building is pretty intense. You're mainly following 3 point of views, but mostly this main character who is the chosen one. Personally, I don't mind that trope, but there's this border in the north and evil is trying to come through, and he has to go and fix it. The beginning is actually set in magical school also, which again, big fan. And it becomes a lot of back and forth between events in the past coming back to haunt certain characters. I will say, again, to not spoil anything, that Kaden, I don't know if it's how you're supposed to pronounce it, that's how I do it, they could never make me hate you, okay? I got, again, so emotionally invested in the characters. I'm okay with the ending. I feel like there's nothing worse than reading really thick fantasy books and feeling like there's something that could have happened differently at the end. No, I'm okay with it. I will say that it felt like some answers were not answered, but the authors did mention at the end that he's actually planning on doing a companion series. He realized that he wasn't going to be able to complete this in a trilogy. So that's fine. That's fine. I do look forward to it. But yes, clearly, the author is now a favorite. I'm reading 2 of his series and enjoying them. So fantastic. So if you were looking for more books by him after reading The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few, this series is definitely worth it. I read some really good fantasy because I also loved A Drop of Corruption, which is the second book after The Tainted Cup, which I also recommend. Sometimes you read a series and you're like, is book 2 going to be as good as book 1? Actually, this one is even better. The author tends to write murder mysteries in fantasy world. In this world, you're following the assistant of Anna, who is the most intriguing character ever. She's the reason I'm loving the series, really. She is quirky. She is supposed to solve these murder mysteries, but she won't even go in person. She sends him to do it, to question people, and she will solve it in her room. So in this specific one, it's a lock room murder mystery that they have to solve, and I really, really liked it. I'm looking forward to reading more. The last book I gave 5-star to this year was The Violin Conspiracy, and I was not prepared for this. I added this on my TBR because I said on the Goodreads Choice Award in 2022 in the mystery category, which is not really the right category. It's more literary fiction, really, but it does start with the mystery, to be fair. The main character is about to participate into this very important competition, music competition. As a violinist, one is priceless violin is stolen. It's worth like millions of dollars, and it is part of his family heritage. And that's how the book starts. And then you go back in time to him younger, discovering his love of violin and music and trying to pursue this as a career. And nobody's on his side, okay? I may have shed a few tears of frustration because a lot of family drama. And then there's also him facing racism and trying to participate again in the world of music. And when things would go well for him, I would be so happy. And then obviously things would go bad for him. I was so frustrated. So again, if you like these kind of stories, I can't recommend this enough. Could not put it down. I needed answers. You do get an answer, but I feel like it's not really the point. It's definitely just the writing. And you can tell the author loves music and violin in general. I know he has at least another book, and I need to read this now because this was fantastic. Really took me by surprise. If you love female rage, the next 2 books are going to be right up your alley because I really enjoy them. The first one is Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery. This one is set in the Puritan times, and it can be really frustrating to read from that time because of everything women will face. And this woman, she's very much in love with her husband, and then he unfortunately dies in kind of mysterious circumstances, and his brother doesn't want her to get the farm. So he's trying to get it from her, but then she makes a deal with the town that if she can actually be successful, she can keep it. So she spends the summer trying really hard to be successful, and, you know, her brother-in-law is trying to be successful as taking it away from her. I will say the horror vibes were not super intense. It's not a book that you're going to be scared of, although I really appreciate the drawing of the creatures, because again, there is magic in there. And yeah, very much a female revenge kind of story. Really enjoyed that part also. And yeah, I recommend it. I liked it quite a bit. Fantasy horror. And then another one that is kind of similar fantasy horror because again, female rage. This one is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Enricks. Fun fact, I also have some of his books in my worst books of the year. Sometimes that's just how it works. This book is set in 1970 in Florida, so women could not get abortions at the time, so this teenager gets pregnant, so her family sends her to this home hidden away to give birth in shame, and afterwards she can pretend everything is fine and go back home. And obviously, it's a very frustrating situation to be in. The fact that she's betrayed by her own family, the fact that she's the only one suffering consequences for something she didn't do alone. And statistically speaking, young girls usually get pregnant by adults. So you know. So of course in a situation like that, someone would have a lot of rage and frustration. And these girls, there's this woman that goes there every 2 weeks to let them borrow some books, little library. And one day she gets a book about witchcraft and things hit the fan, so the horror portions happen. I can appreciate that actually the horror elements in here are not super crazy, so it makes it more realistic. I will say it could have went further. That's my only critique of the book, but yes, very enraging. Happy with how things end, and that's it. Do recommend this book. Now let's talk about my 2 special mentions. Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I didn't know what to expect when I went into this book because I hadn't seen so many negative reviews of the book before it was out in forever. And I read it expecting the worst, and then I was very mad. I actually rented in 2 different vlogs. I can link those if you're interested, because I don't understand people. This is very clearly a fantasy dark academia book, and people were complaining about the characters being a certain way, but like, that's how it is in dark academia. I think it's because people have been calling this a romantasy. No, you're following insufferable characters doing horrible things or trying to survive horrible consequences, because there's usually also murder. That's what happens. The main character goes to university and she will do absolutely anything to get her diploma. She's studying magic and her teacher might have been sent to hell because of her. Maybe. But now she needs to go back and get him because he's the only person that can actually get her diploma, and her enemy or rival at school goes with her. I mean, right there, right up my alley. I will say this is definitely her most fun book. Obviously, it's still dark. It's hell. But I feel like her other books are kind of traumatizing, and this one felt like a fun adventure in comparison. Personally, my favorite part has to be the flashbacks of the 2 characters to kind of get how they are like this. Why are they like this? And to me, that's what made them more likable, more interesting. I feel like R.F. Kuang writes really good, morally gray, mostly just complex female characters, and I feel like there aren't enough of those, and she does it super well. So yes, absolutely adore this book. Do recommend it if you are looking for more dark academia or books set in hell. This was fantastic. And then we have The Raven Scholar, which this book, I've been seeing it everywhere. People either love it or hate it. And frankly, I thought it was a lot of fun. I've heard the critiques and I don't necessarily disagree, but it didn't change anything to me. I really liked it. It read a little YA at times. Sure, maybe some of the writing style felt difficult to understand at first, but I feel like eventually everything makes sense. And again, it was fun. I like my fantasy books to sometimes be fun. Obviously, a lot of dark stuff happens because this main character is a high scholar. She just wants to study, but she is forced to solve this murder mystery because there's this big competition that's going on to replace the emperor. He can only be in power for so long. And someone is murdered, and she has to figure it out before they murder more people, or, you know, consequences will happen. And yeah, she's reluctant, but is forced to do a lot of stuff. And I enjoyed it. I'm curious what the rest of the series is going to look like because of the way things end, but I'm open to continuing for sure. So would recommend this one if you've seen it going around. You'll see quickly if it's a book for you or not, but I really enjoyed it. You can tell I had a lot of opinions while reading it. Now I want to know, what are the best books you have read in 2025? That way we can also add more to our 2026 TBR. If you have any opinions on the ones I've mentioned, definitely let me know. And I will be putting more videos on the screen, including my worst books of 2025 once it's up, and I will see you there. Bye.